Okay, so this is video 8 in what I'm rather pretentiously calling my series. So this is an idea I had based around the Secretary of State Nicky Morgan, her speech to the teacher union NASUWT in March 2016. So we all make mistakes. We often miss the point. Sometimes we need something to happen before we realise that we've missed the point. We didn't even realise. Like quite a few years ago, I was about 26, 27, I think, and I had calls to cook something, and the recipe said I needed seasoned flour. So I turned up at Tesco's in Camberley there and searched, got to the flour section. They had all sorts, plain flour, self-raising, but no seasoned flour. So in the end, I went home, got some plain flour, put some salt and pepper in it, and rolled these chicken pieces in it before I cooked them. And of course, when I told people this, they thought it was hilarious. Although who'd let them on the secret of what seasoned flour was, not me. I'm not quite sure. And obviously that kind of misunderstanding is quite known to be quite funny, especially if you don't like the person so much, maybe. I was once, I had to mark an essay from a PGCE student. And you have to excuse me, I'm going to look away a minute because I want to read out exactly what he put. So he opened his essay with this. So he wrote, physical education is a subject on the school curriculum and is taught in schools. Not the most remarkable or eye-catching opening sentence. But in the process of marking it, I just inserted a note there to say, this is tautology, which, in case you haven't come across that, is the idea that you say the same thing twice. So he's saying it's on the school curriculum and it's taught in schools. You don't need, just one will do. So anyway, I marked the assignment, and as it happened, it failed. Not because of that one sentence. I'm not that tough a marker. I'm not that macho. And he had to resubmit it. And when I got the resubmission, I kind of remembered it. And the opening sentence this time was, excuse me again, I'm just going to read this. Physical education is a subject on the school curriculum and it's taught in schools. Exactly the same as he'd done before. But then what he'd done was, there was like comma, subclause, and he put, and that is tautology. So he, I guess, excuse me, I'm just going to scroll down here. Right, okay. So on the one hand, he did respond to the feedback, so that's good. On the other hand, no, he didn't even have the nous or the energy to look up what tautology meant, or he couldn't be asked. And so he just did what he thought I wanted to read. Now, over the years, there have been quite a few examples with MPs, where they've clearly misunderstood or made mistakes, and that's been quite amusing. So if you remember David Cameron trying to show that he was sort of down with the people, confused West Brom and West Ham. Sorry, Aston Villa, I beg your pardon. Aston Villa and West Ham, their kits are similar. To much hilarity. And then there was the toe-curling interview between Nick Ferrari and Diane Abbott. I do remember that, to do with what Labour would spend on police. So Abbott was fumbling and bumbling around there and hadn't got a clue. And then sometimes these things are classic sort of foot in the mouth ones. And Boris Johnson, of course, is famous for these, and some of them are quite unpleasant, actually. This is one where Boris was claiming that the Libyan city of Sirte would have a bright future as a luxury resort. And then he came up with this unbelievable sort of qualification to that. It's saying Sirte would have a bright future as a luxury resort once investors cleared the dead bodies away. Horrible. Well, the one I'm going to centre on here is Nicky Morgan, who was Education Secretary in 2016, and her sort of keynote speech to the NASUWT, that's one of the big teacher unions. in March 2016, so it was like the Easter conference. So Morgan was Education Secretary at the time. She was one of the keynote speakers. I guess we can see this as quite a brave move, that she's chosen to speak at something like that. Anyway, so you can make your own mind up, because I think it's some possible interpretations based on what happened. But you can see she was probably up against it. The teaching morale was very low at that time. Once teachers have struggled through to Easter, they aren't necessarily the best morale. But you just say you make your own mind up. So it's probably worth bearing in mind at this point that, with capitalism, one of the things that occurs in capitalism, and certainly somewhere which is an advanced economic state like USA, is that, the cheap labour. And so it's quite ironic, I guess, that Trump has made such a fuss about the wall into Mexico, because I guess to some extent America have built their wealth on the back of cheap labour from Mexico. But of course, over years, what has happened is, in order to combat the people who are in charge of the means of production, people have formed unions, workers band together. And that's well established. That's a good thing, I guess. It's, it's always good if there are checks and balances in society. So here we are. We've got Nicky Morgan at the NASUWT conference doing her speech. I'm going to look down and say I want to read out actually some of the sort of points she makes. So the first thing she says is that the evidence shows that education's never been better. This is a classic one, isn't it? Because she doesn't obviously tell us what evidence there is as policy. They tend not to do. But you could also say, well, they've been in power for 6 years. And so she's kind of positioning the past as a success, which you'd expect her to do. Then she says, on your website, that's the NASUWT website, she says in the last 20 press releases, only 3 said anything positive about teaching. So she has done a research, which is a good thing. Okay, and she's citing that back. Then she said, would it be more helpful? Now, when she says that, I think we were pretty sure what she means is, would it be more helpful to her? Because don't forget, this is a union. This is all about teachers' sort of collegiality, what they can do to support each other. She says, wouldn't it be more helpful if your press releases gave the impression that teaching is a sort of a good profession, a good thing to go into? And then she says, given those messages, why would anyone want to become a teacher? So, crikey. But it just seems to me what she's doing there is confusing the NASUWT from a teaching union to some sort of, PR organisation. Then she says, you are the best people to help sell this as a profession to newcomers. Sell a profession. Teaching is a vocation, surely. Not some sort of commodity to be marketed, advertised and sold with student teachers as a commodity. Or are they? So I thought that's interesting. Then she says, and this is, I think, classic sort of weasel words, really. She says, let's resolve to work together. Now, by that, I think she means I want you to do what I want to get this policy enacted, our latest iteration of the policy, which is educational excellence everywhere, the white paper, to get this enacted. And then she says, and this is kind of the big push, the big finish, the fireworks. She says, I'm asking you to step up. Get that? I'm asking you to step up. So she's asking them to kind of almost redouble their efforts to try even harder. Not to do it better, but to try harder. And she says to be a part of these exciting changes. When she says part of, I think she means following. And then seize all the opportunities that come with it. And with that, she walks off the stage. Needless to say, one of the limpest rounds of applause you've ever heard. Now, I think from the point of view of this, there are 3 possible interpretations that we can make here. which range kind of from the most generous to perhaps the least generous. But as I say, you can make your own mind up. So the first is that maybe she was so desperate to get her white paper through, she didn't consider anything else. She just got really excited. It's a big room, lots of people. I'm just going for it. Although, the speech clearly would, she was, I'm sure, reading it off an altar cue, but maybe we can forgive her over-enthusiastic, or not over, but... and that's a good thing. She may have misread the room, but... okay. Now, the second interpretation I think is really interesting because the Huffington Post sort of talked about her sort of coming in and riding roughshod over a teaching union. They said she might kind of be channeling Thatcher versus Scargill. So that's back in the 80s when Margaret Thatcher was Prime Minister. Arthur Scargill was the sort of leader of the miners' union. And as you will be aware, there was a bit of a confrontation going on there. And then the Huffington Post says maybe as such she was kind of like trying to establish her credentials, taking on the Wellard Teachers' Union as a route to maybe becoming Prime Minister. So that's another way you could... so as such it was a bid for the leadership. But there is a third possibility. There's a third possibility. And I just wonder, could it be in the same way that I didn't realise seasoned flour was actually just flour with salt and pepper? In the same way that the student couldn't be bothered to look up tautology and just did what I was told, didn't understand that. Or the same way that Cameron didn't understand the difference between West Ham United and Aston Villa. Could it actually be that Nicky Morgan did not understand what a union is for and does?